Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky. Andy, Russell Westbrook has deleted the Lakers entirely from his Instagram account. Does that mean this relationship is over? Fans might not want to get too excited just yet. We'll explain why next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Fridays, and sometimes on weekends, no matter how you get your podcasts, where you get your podcasts. Always free and always there for you. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube, Andy, is where people can go to get the stuff a little bit early if you just can't wait for the strictly audio product. So we're going to get to some stuff that Kyrie Irving had to say after the Brooklyn Nets were eliminated from the playoffs. We'll get to some fascinating data around just how unusual this postseason has become with no LeBron James and no Kevin Durant in the postseason. At this point, and try to get to a game. We wanted to get to it, kind of a thought exercise / game for Tuesday's show. We didn't have time. We'll see if we get to it today. But Andy, let's start here. In the year of our Lord, 2022, is there anything that gets people's attention more than a player removing his employer from any mentions on his Instagram feed?
Certainly not in the world of sports. That is not how it works. If you want to get everybody's attention, even more than a press conference or an interview where you go just scorched earth on your franchise, don't get me wrong, that'll get some attention too. But
it would work, but I'm not sure it would be any necessarily that much more effective.
Sometimes you can do just as much or even more by saying less in the world of social media.
And what I think is so fascinating, we're not just talking about Russell Westbrook removing, it was the Lakers, Rockets, and Wizards all mention of these three teams. It's only the Thunder that remain on his Instagram feed.
Well, everything, Brian, except, just to be clear, so people understand, Russell Westbrook, his avatar, does still have him in a Laker uniform. As you can see right here, we're putting up right now, Russ West 44. You can see it is a picture of Russ in that Laker.
It's like a little drawing, like a little drawing.
And he's flexing and yelling, presumably in triumph.
Or at fans who are yelling at him.
He's yelling at someone.
He's either yelling in triumph or at someone.
Yeah, I mean, this season has been
perhaps Frank Vogel.
But in terms of photos, and neither one of us is active on Instagram, so I'd be lying if I said I was familiar with Russ's Instagram feed before this. I actually didn't even know that Russ had an Instagram. Like, for sure, I assumed it, but didn't know. But our friends over at Silver Screen and Roll pointed this out, and I guess somebody else brought it to their attention. But I did a dive, Brian, through his feed, and however many photos were there representing Lakers, Wizards, and Rockets before, ain't none of them now. There is no clue other than his avatar, Brian, that he's ever played for a team other than the Thunder.
What I love about this move is that when a player does this, and it's become kind of standard operating procedure whenever you have these types of strained relationships between players and teams, it's perfect because, like you say, you're saying more by saying less. It could mean nothing. It could just be a routine updating of his Instagram feed, a culling of material that he doesn't really want up there anymore. It might not be anything, Andy. I don't know what you're talking about. You put Russ in front of me. I'm like, did that come from me? Did you hear me say that I took this stuff down in an effort to, because remember, if it doesn't come directly from Russ, it's not real. Yeah. Or it could mean that he is done with these bleepers and is, while picking up his $47 million option, out the door.
Well, what's funny too is in going through Russ's feed and just the pettiness that is beyond just this Instagram issue, just Russell Westbrook in general. I found, and I went several scrolls downward, I found 3 photos of Kevin Durant in there at all. Because again, all that's represented now, basketball wise, is his time with the Thunder. And he spent several years with Kevin Durant. There, you could argue those were the best years Russell Westbrook ever had, other than the one MVP season. I found a photo of KD and Russ at what appeared to be a Russell Westbrook benefit. So, I mean, it would be really out of pocket to delete Durant from that. There was
like a hole where Durant used to be.
There was some type of photo, I think, from the two of them at the All-Star game together. There was one that looked like them, maybe Russ's rookie year, Durant's second, like something like you got to go a long ways back. And it feels like, because we know that the two of them had a pretty bad falling out as well. And they taking shots at each other back and forth. And a lot of this really seemed more instigated by Russ than instigated by KD. But Russ never forgets. And I assume that this happened a while back because, again, I don't know Russ's Instagram feed. But either way, just going through this says a lot about Russ in ways that are amusing.
I thought, and again, none of this is related to Russell Westbrook, the human being that lives off the court and does family, has his family and does community work and all that. But I thought initially, maybe what he's doing is he's trying to really lean into this idea of, I am, a person that goes beyond basketball. It's obviously a theme that was very important to him. It was much more important to him as the basketball part of it deteriorated. I think that was something he used as a bit of a shield in that regard to avoid the criticism that came with how he was performing on the floor. But there are still a decent amount, like you said, of just pictures of him playing basketball in Oklahoma City. It's like, it's not just Russell Westbrook's charity events. There's a lot of that in there.
I mean, there's a lot. It's more now at this point off the court than
off the court and business ventures and all that kind of stuff. And it's fun to have fun with this. But I will say, whether it is Russell Westbrook trying to make a statement about his relationship with the Lakers, or whether it's Russell Westbrook just saying, I want to make sure there's more focus on the stuff that's important to me right now, which is my Instagram feed being something that really promotes my off-court business ventures, the community work that I do, the Russell Westbrook reading rooms and all that. He damn well knows what the reaction will be. So if he wants to clarify why, he certainly could, and I don't anticipate that he will.
Well, there's also, Brian, one more scenario that you could read into this with Russell Westbrook's Instagram feed.
I would love to know about that, Andy?
After the break?
Yes. I'd love to know about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Shady Rays, an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for the fraction of a price. Polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, premium high-end finishes, plus something you will not find anywhere else, Shady Rays' insane protection program. That sounds like
you're going to say pictures of Russell Westbrook on the Rockets. No.
Shady Rays stays out of that. That's got nothing to do with them. But what they do offer you is their lost and broken protection plan, which the Lakers should have gotten when they traded for Russ. But on every pair, they will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. So give them a try. If you don't like them, you'll pay nothing. It's that simple. My God, that is insane of Shady Rays. Somebody needs to reach out and help them. But hopefully not until you actually capitalize on this deal. Plus, you feel good about it knowing that 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays, which is really awesome. So exclusively for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com, use the code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for the best deal of the season, 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses backed by over 150,000 5-star reviews. Verified.
I tell you what, I wish Shady Ray was in charge of like trades in the NBA so the Lakers could have a new point guard sent to them. No matter what happened, we will replace the point guard that you traded for no matter what. Did you lose him? Did it not work out? Did they just not feel right on your face? Whatever. We'll send you a new one. But that's not how it works.
Certainly would have made things a lot easier with Ben Simmons.
It's a strange place though too, because it brings us back this, the and I put this word in air quotes for people who are only hearing the audio portion, controversy over Westbrook moving the Lakers off of his Instagram page. It's a reminder that obviously, Andy, everybody literally, I'm not entirely sure there is a single human being that wants Russell Westbrook to be on the Lakers next year, at least among Lakers fans. Celtics fans are probably, in there or whatever. But among Lakers fans, I'm not sure there is a single person who wants Westbrook on the team next year, and I'm including Westbrook. That doesn't mean he's not going to be on the team next year. I know we're going to talk to Jovan Buha for Thursday show, right? For Thursday, yep. And we'll see maybe even Friday as well, depending on how long we get with him. And he has written, and a lot of people have written that, Westbrook will be moved. And I think that's going to be everybody's intent. But we don't know yet what the price of that is going to be. And it is not guaranteed to me that they open the season next year with Westbrook somewhere else.
Yeah, there is no guarantee, because we've talked about this many times. The Lakers need to be really smart about this and not panic and not treat this as a bigger deal than it actually is. Westbrook is a problem, but it's a 1-year problem unless you make it a longer one, because you make a deal that hurts you down the road, or you do something like stretch him and you keep dead money on your books longer than I think either one of us think is necessary.
Well, but I will say, I and we don't have to go into the dead money rabbit hole. I will say, after our conversation with Eric Pincus, who kind of broke down what it would do to them, the stretch option is not as burdensome.
Okay.
As I would have thought before.
You're still extending the problem, though.
You're extending the problem, but I will say, because the Lakers would almost certainly not have cap space to use on another player that they otherwise wouldn't be able to use because of Westbrook, just because they're paying other guys $45 million each. So I just wanted to finish the reason, so people listening don't go, why? That's why. But it comes with a cost. You're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you may not lose a max slot cap space, but you lose some degree of cap space. Like
you lose flexibility.
Yes, exactly.
There's something that will be lost when you're paying somebody that money, because you can't fully anticipate what your roster and your salary structure is going to look like in a year or 2 or 3, and where that dead money, 15 million or whatever it is, might not look like a problem on day 1. On day 300, it could be.
Right. But getting back to Russ's Instagram, and there only being reminiscence of him being with
remnants,
the Thunder.
I believe.
Remnants is actually
I believe is the word you were looking.
That is actually.
Although I guess they could be sort of reminiscences of his times with someone else, but I do believe the word you were looking for was remnants.
I'm pretty positive it was. Thank you. But there's only now remnants of his time with the Thunder. And what does that specifically mean? We talked about, I believe, on Monday's show, Brian, that one of the scenarios that Eric Pincus wrote in a recent Bleacher Report article about realistic-ish, if nothing else, trade possibilities for Westbrook was actually to the Thunder, because until the free agency and that new calendar flips over for the CBA, they have 30-ish something in available cap space before Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's extension kicks in the new salary calendar. And there would be a possibility that if the Lakers traded Westbrook and theoretically draft picks and took on one or both of Mike Muscala and Derek Favors, this particular thing, as opposed to a deal that happens once free agency opens up, or after I believe it's July 1st, the Thunder wouldn't have that ability. So this is the only scenario we've seen that actually would be on a clock of sorts. There's a bit of time, but you can't just wait this thing out the way you might wait out other potential offers for Russ. And Russ may be aware of this. So there is also the possibility, Brian, that making the Thunder the only part of his Instagram is him actually trying to sell the Thunder on this, trying to get them a little bit sentimental, saying to them, hey, I can be a part of this process moving forward. We can celebrate the prodigal son returning, the one that wanted to stay, the one that stayed when that Judas Durant left, the one that would have stayed had Paul George not wanted out. And then it really made no sense for me to stay either. So I was helping you guys out. But remember me, Mr. Thunder, future first statue of the organization. I want to be there to help Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dort and Josh Giddey and that Poku dude. Like I want
that skinny fella.
Yeah, I want to be there. Let's come full circle together. Admit it. You kind of miss me.
Poku made like rookie Brandon Ingram look fat. I will, but like to your point,
a little bit of subliminal messaging.
It's not subliminal if you can see it right there. It's not flashing in front. But like he also is aware that people will react that way. Like somebody's going to point out, like, "Ooh, the Thunder, the only team up there." Maybe he's doing this for fun because he's got time to kill between now and picking up the option. But there's
don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone. Memories.
Midnight.
I'm just saying.
Not a sound on the pavements.
I'm just saying. All of a sudden,
that was the right lyric, by the way.
I don't think it was either.
The tune wasn't bad, but
all of a sudden,
I have remnants of the song in my head, but not all of
Ross
them.
is getting everybody over there a little bit misty-eyed for what used to be.
Before we get to
the glory days of the organization.
No, it's true. They've not been good since. Before we get to scary things that Kyrie Irving said, is there a scenario in which you can imagine Westbrook coming back next year, presumably with LeBron and AD, and hopefully somebody under 40, and it actually working better, where this year's disaster informs next year, people come in with a different approach. You have a new coach, you have that it could be better. I don't think it'll ever be seamless. It'll ever be perfect, but could you picture it being better next year from a basketball standpoint than it was this year? Basketball, relationship wise, all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, in the sense that how could it possibly be worse? I mean, I'm being serious when I say
but you
that.
understand. You understand why I'm asking, because it's it has been presumed that Russell Westbrook returning to actually play basketball with the Lakers next year would be an unbridled disaster. Is that necessarily true?
I mean, it has the potential to be very underwhelming again, because the exact same issues that we were concerned about heading into this season before the injuries took place, before, a lot of different specifics really derailed the season. There were still the issues of fit and how well these guys would be, able to put their skills together, the sacrifice thing, all of that stuff. Like it all still exists. But again, I would rather see that scenario than the Lakers give up way too much just to move Russ for a middling return. I'd much rather run it back than do that.
I think it's a mistake to assume that it couldn't get better, like in part because you said can't get worse. And let's just pretend for a minute that the Lakers hire somebody that Russ gets along with a little bit better. It seems like the relationship with the coach was problematic.
Hank Vogel
comes back in with like a fake mustache and a wig.
That's how the Lakers get out of not just having to pay Vogel a year for not working, because they're so cheap.
It's like Ted Lasso almost. They pretend to hire this guy. And I would love to see Frank play the character.
Russ, my name's Hank Vogel. I heard you and my distant by marriage cousin Frank didn't get along. I just want you to know I'm a very different man.
Well, you know what? At some point, we should explore this option a little bit more and just kind of like what could be done next year to make this work better. But next, let's talk about things that Kyrie said that probably scare Laker fans too.
But first, Brian, Locked on Lakers brought to you by Built Bar. Eating smart, but also eating enjoyably. It's never tasted better. You can treat yourself without feeling guilty. If you've not tried the Puffs, you are missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars, the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're amazing. They're fluffy, marshmallowy. They're just like nothing you've ever heard of before, and covered in 100% real chocolate. They got incredible flavors like cinnamon churro, coconut, marshmallow, banana cream pie. All of them are going to be your new favorite, but you don't even have to choose. You just have them all. And again, covered in 100% real chocolate, but somehow, unlike a candy bar, which are usually, 200 to 300 calories of just empty nonsense.
You're better off eating one of them Shady Ray sunglasses.
Yeah. Most Built Bars, they're only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs, but 17 grams of protein. And that's the good stuff. And you got awesome, cool, unique flavor combinations. They're always in the lab, just creating new stuff. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15, 15% off at built.com. Real quick, Brian, before we get to Kyrie's comments, I want to throw out a factoid that I saw over from our friends at Lakers Nation. This postseason now, with the Lakers, them not getting into the play-in, and the Nets getting swept by Boston, this is the first time in 17 seasons that the second round of the playoffs did not include LeBron or Kevin Durant. You got to go back to LeBron's rookie season when his Cavaliers did not make it. That was the 2005 playoffs. And Kevin Durant at this point was still in high school. Like, that's how far back you are going to where the second round didn't include either one of these guys. And an interesting link to the Lakers. This was the one pre-Achilles season that Kobe's team was not in the playoffs either. It was the gap year between Kobe and Shaq's final season and Phil Jackson coming back. It was the year where Kobe, Lamar Odom, and Caron Butler was the theoretical core they were going to build around, which, again, lets you know it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. That is really impressive. Like, this is one of the, it's a good seg, because if you're looking for a reason as to why teams still can be dedicated to this idea of superstars or bust, it's statistics like that, where if you have LeBron James, if you have Kevin Durant, if you have Steph Curry when he's healthy, like some of these guys, Giannis is now in that group, you are, I don't want to say all the way to contention, but you have put yourself past the first few hurdles of being able to win an NBA championship. And the path to getting there without one of those guys, and I'm not talking about without having an all-star, I'm talking about without having sort of one of that upper echelon uber elite dudes. I mean, for people who don't know, Kyrie Irving has the option of declining the final season of his contract for $36.5 million. He can sign a 5-year, $246 million deal with the Nets. Andy, I'm going to ask a question. I'm fairly sure I know your answer. Were you in charge of the Brooklyn Nets, sign Kyrie Irving to a 5-year, $246 million contract?
God, no. Assuming I've got the backing of my owner to do the things that I think are best for the health of the franchise, abso-freaking-lutely not.
Because you can't even say, because I know like one of your theories is like Kyrie doesn't want to play full time, but like he probably doesn't want to retire fully either if he means he can collect the money. So you end up having to like pay him to be like a part-time guy.
Okay, but put a pin in that, because we're going to get into that before the show ends, because it pertains to comments that Kyrie had after the Nets got eliminated.
Right. But and that's sort of what I'm getting to. when you have these star situations, you find yourself, and I am not as apprehensive about signing LeBron to an extension as you are, but I understand the concerns. He's getting older, it costs a lot of money, and he is no longer as bulletproof as he used to be. You lose a lot of flexibility when you have a lot of guys who make that kind of cash on your team, but you also put yourself in a
and it's
position
also
when
because of him really quickly just being tethered to AD, who there are also concerns about
Sure.
his availability
Right.
as well. Just to clarify,
And
that's it.
absolutely. I'm sure they feel the same with the Clippers, with Paul George and Kawhi. It's in isolation, either one of them is probably okay. In combination, it's a bit of a problem.
Yep.
You put yourself, when you get these sort of mercenary style super team guys, in a position where you've given up so much to get them that you almost always have to keep them. And that gives them an extraordinary amount of control too over your organization. Kyrie Irving said this, after the sweep. He said he was here for the long haul with Kevin Durant. And quote, "When I say I'm here with Kev, I think it really entails us managing this franchise together alongside Joe Tsai, the owner, and Sean Marks, the GM, and just our group of family members that we have in our locker room and our organization. I think we just got to make some moves in the offseason, really talk about it, and be intentional about what we're building. And here's my favorite part, Andy, and have some fun with it."
Mm-hmm. Well, they were lacking fun.
Have a little bit of fun. Let's the four of us. We're going to get in a room. We're going to have a little bit of fun putting this thing together.
Is he wrong that the Nets were lacking fun this season? Is he wrong?
No. He's not.
I mean, he could be maybe a little more introspective about where the fun was lacking.
I am surprised. I am surprised nobody punched him in the face when he said, "Yeah, I feel like my lack of availability hurt our continuity this year."
Yeah, I mean, he did. I would say, to Kyrie's credit, he was more open about the idea that my situation created a distraction for the team without outright apologizing for it. And I'm not expecting that he would. It's a shift from February when he was asked about this, and his response was essentially, "Hell no, I don't feel guilty about this at all."
But like the relevance to me, obviously, we can talk about the Nets, but this conversation about super teams, because part of what the Lakers are doing in theory with keeping this precious cap space, is to try to always be in a position where they can sign a max free agent, always be in a position where they can go get another one of these guys. And, they are, on the one hand, like I said, vital. You cannot win without this type of talent. But the guys who are available that you can usually assign or acquire or whatever aren't the 24-year-old guys going for their first max deal. It's the 29 or 30-year-old guy who then you can sign and you have to, make a long-term financial commitment to, past when it's probably a good idea. Like Damian Lillard is one of the most amazing humans and players along. If I'm Portland, I'm a little, I would have some hesitation about giving him the kind of money that he could. It's like, it puts teams, look at who's still in there. The stars that are still playing, the teams that are still playing, it's young legs and, younger players and teams that aren't kind of held down by this by and large, save maybe a team like Golden State, but even they've been really aided by an injection of young talent.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. First of all, I have to say, when Kyrie, because I want to make sure I pay off my theory, when Kyrie talked about managing the group together, him and Kev and Tsai and Sean Marks, they're all just going to run the organization together. As you noted at the top of the show, Brian, I've said many times publicly, including earlier this week, I don't think Kyrie wants to play basketball full-time, 82 games a season or even close to that. As much as I think he's actually legitimately vax skeptical for a variety of reasons, ranging from being a contrarian to a conspiracy theorist to just being misinformed, I also think he used the vaccine as an excuse to get out of something he didn't want to do anyway. And this was something that's gone on well before the pandemic, much less during. When he talks about managing them together, I think he actually is talking about time that he will consider himself on the clock and therefore apply that time proactively towards the actual
He doesn't
season.
have to play as many games.
Yes. Yeah. So sometime in January, after he wants a stretch of 2 weeks off because he saw this really intense CNN special about world affairs and it's got him all screwed up and he needs time to decompress. He's going to look at that time in July that, he's spent in the Hamptons with all the guys in the Nets recruiting, or that one Zoom that he was on for like 5 hours with Durant and Bobby Marks and Joe Simon. Be like, look, guys, I was working.
These are these are billable hours, Andy.
Exactly.
To use the legal.
I do. I think that's a great way of putting it. I think he is actually thinking about this stuff as billable hours proactively that he can apply to the games that he's going to take off.
But then, all right, so go ahead. I'm sorry,
but I was going to say really quick, just as far as the Lakers go, obviously the who you pick as stars really does matter, and you're raising a very good point about that. But I also think what really matters, and this gets back to the Lakers as well, because they've been talked about before and talked about themselves before as having a collaborative front office. Sometimes that feels like code for LeBron and Rich Paul really run it. Sometimes it's code for we want to make sure there are buffers.
Right. I want to take responsibility for my decision. Right.
But I think what this speaks to is somebody, ostensibly Rob Pelinka, for better or for worse, needs to be in charge and needs to have the backing to tell his stars no, if he really feels like he needs to be able to tell his stars no. And that could be something that goes on with the Nets, depending on how they feel things should go forward with Kyrie versus how Durant may feel, or when it comes to LeBron and AD and the Lakers with decisions that get made in terms of who you add as free agents, assets that you do give up, don't give up, decisions they made last offseason leading to this offseason. You need to be able to tell your stars no.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing for the Lakers and the Nets, like a commonality in their situations.
I just that's a huge part of it. The reasons that these two teams failed, I think, and we talked about it some on Wednesday's show. Tuesday's show, if you haven't had a chance to go back and listen to that. And I think we'll talk about this a lot with Kevin Arnovitz, who I believe we're going to have on Monday. Just great writer and thinker from ESPN. It's just, I think what makes it so interesting is just how it requires, I think, a bit of a rethinking of team construction and what is the right way to make a super team. What does a super team look like now compared to 5 years ago or 7 years ago? And I think the answer is it's changed. How much? Hard to say. But it's a theme I think we can explore a lot of over the course of this offseason. We'll certainly get into it later in the week and into next week as well. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. That's where you go to get the show early. Really thank everybody for all their participation there. We'll keep using your comments and all that stuff in the show. So make sure you're leaving questions, leaving comments, interesting ones, and we'll wrap you in, and we'll see everybody on Thursday.